crypto. I don't think I've asked you about that. What are your thoughts here with Bitcoin?
Well, our conviction in its importance has only increased over the last few years. As I mentioned earlier, we gained our first exposure in 2015. And I remember at that time, we were very new. Our funds had just launched in 14. And in the ETF world, some journalists were calling it a marketing gimmick, and nobody took us very seriously for anything back then, actually. But Bitcoin is, and each of these words is important, global, digital, private, meaning no government oversight, rules-based, and that is critically important, monetary system in the history of mankind. And I remember when we did our first paper on Bitcoin in 2015, the question we were trying to answer was, can Bitcoin serve the three roles of money? And we did the paper in collaboration with Art Laffer. And when Art really understood what this was, as he went through the paper and really parsed through it, he said, wait a minute, this is what I've been waiting for since we went off the gold exchange standard in 1971, when we closed the gold window. This is a very big idea. And I said, well, Art, how big is it? And he said, well, how big is the monetary base, the US monetary base? Back then, it was $4.5 trillion. Today, it's $8 trillion. And I remember that is when I gained my own conviction and bought a lot of Bitcoin, really before we had finished our due diligence on GBTC. We didn't know if that was going to be an appropriate vehicle or even allowed in ETFs. We had to go to regulators at the New York Stock Exchange to see if we could put it in. But once I understood how big of an idea it was, I mean, there are just some aha moments in one's life. And that was one for me. And that's how it usually happens. Someone who's not at all involved in the research, but is very grounded in whether it's economics or some part of the innovation space, comes out and says, wait a minute, this is what we've been waiting for. Or wait a minute, this is a very big idea. And so our forecast for the entire crypto asset world in terms of valuation in 2030 is 25 trillion. And we think that Bitcoin could account for nearly half of that. Right now, Bitcoin is roughly $500 billion in what we call network value or valuation.
Thank you for that. I know, Cathie, you have to run.